Dr. Milliner, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to go ahead. I was in the practice session. We do have another minute before we get started.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for, the committee folks have what's called a unique link. So I see Chris. Christopher, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Okay, great, great, great. There comes Laura.
Hello. How's everyone? Hi there.
Let me see, I've got Jennifer. Let me check with her for a second here. All right, Jennifer should be joining us momentarily.
Okay,
How are you doing today, Miss Laura?
I'm doing very well. How about you, Rita? And how's
I'm
everyone?
doing well. Did you
Good.
connect with Dr. Wade?
Yes,
Okay, all right, because she reached out to me, because I thought you guys were meeting today.
yes, I just left her office maybe a half hour ago.
Excellent, excellent. Let's see where Miss Jennifer is. Everybody else has their links. Might need to resend hers. Let me do that. What's wrong with my video? Something's going on with it, yeah. Hmm. Don't know. Let's see. I resent. No. Okay, hold on just a second for Jennifer. Hold on.
Okay. Oh, there she is.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what just happened, but it switched me to panelists, so I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, I sent you a panelist link.
Thank you. It's
Good.
working. For some reason,
Yes,
it
good.
admitted me before I was an attendee and I couldn't speak. I was automatically muted. So good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it's all
I
good.
apologize about that. Everybody else got theirs and I got yours corrected. So only the committee and Laura and myself, we have the panelist link. Everyone else who have been invited, they have the attendee link. And right now there's about 15 participants.
Great, great. Well, welcome everyone and good afternoon. This is a meeting of the Board Development Committee of the West End Opportunity Partnership. It's 4:34 Eastern Time, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm Jennifer Hancock, recently appointed chair of this Board Development Committee, and our charge is to revisit our process for the selection of, we are down to 2 neighborhoods that need to be represented on our board. And I'm talking about the Parkland and the Park Hill neighborhoods. And I want to welcome all of you, particularly our newest members who responded to my pleas to join this committee. So thank you, Dr. Milliner, Chris, and Alicia for joining Gina and me. We have Dr. Frank Smith, who's still listed as a committee member. I don't know, Laura or Rita, if you have an update about his participation today, but it looks like we have quorum and we can go ahead and get started. Rita,
Yes,
I'm going
Jennifer,
to.
Jennifer, Dr. Smith is currently, I spoke with him on text. He is currently on a virtual call, a
Okay.
meeting that he's hosting right now. So he may join us if he gets finished in time. So he did confirm that with me.
Terrific. Thanks, Rita. And Rita, do you want to give us any updates regarding the past meeting minutes before we get started
Yes.
with the agenda?
Yes, I went back to the last meeting of the Board Development Committee, which was on March 24th. And then what I'll do is I'll get these documented and then we'll get these minutes posted. But just to provide a brief update, at that meeting, the attendance was Devon Holt, our previous chair at the time. Jennifer, you were there, and Gina. Dr. Smith and Celine were not in attendance at that meeting. And basically what happened on March 24th was in preparation for the board meeting the next week, in terms of identifying the candidates for the 9 neighborhoods. And at that time, all the candidates had been nominated except for 3 neighborhoods. And that was California at the time, Parkland, and Park Hill. And on that meeting, we had Dr. Mary Milliner, who is now a board member and with us on this committee, who was nominated for California. And Dr. Milliner provided a background in terms of her experience in education. And she talked about why she wanted to be on the board. And then we went on to the Parkland neighborhood, and we had 2 of the neighborhood nominators, Tamika, and I forget Tamika's last name, I think it's Jackson, and Lisa Wilson, who talked about their process for the Parkland neighborhood nomination. And that at the time was Tammy Hawkins. And so each of the nominators went through their narrative, and then Tammy also shared about her background and experience. And then after that one, we talked about the Park Hill neighborhood. And at that time in March, there was 1 nomination, and that person, Denise Dickerson, I do believe, was the candidate at the time, but was not actually nominated for the seat. That left us open for the Park Hill neighborhood. And I think, obviously, to this day, that position is still open. At that time, Bruce Sherrard, there was a discussion about Bruce Sherrard, who was interested in Parkland, but Gina confirmed that he actually lived in the Algonquin neighborhood. So there was discussion about term limits, and then the meeting went to a Q&A. And the takeaway from that meeting, excuse me, my allergies, was to reopen the portal for consideration for nominations for the Park Hill neighborhood. And that's where we left it at that time. And we have not had a board development committee meeting since until today. So that kind of gives you a background about where we left off in March. Gina, if you want to add anything to that, please do so.
Sure. Thank you, Rita. My recollection is pretty much the same. We did reopen a portal specific for the Park Hill neighborhood, and there were never any responses on that application. And just for your benefit, for those I knew would be in attendance, I did send you an email with the application submittals for both the Park Hill and Parkland neighborhoods. So those should be in your inboxes right now. Thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you, Rita, and thanks, Gina. I want to turn the conversation, since that I think is a good recap of where we've been, and open up to this committee today for some discussion regarding where we want to go. Are we satisfied that we had the right process in place in terms of utilizing nominators to vet candidates? Or do we want to consider some new ways to cast a net to engage some prospects who may be willing to consider joining this board? So I'm particularly interested in those of you who are new to this committee, because those of us who have been serving on this committee developed the process that we utilized, and it was effective with 7 of the neighborhood members. You're living proof of that, the 3 of you who have joined us. But we are not opposed to going in a different direction. If we want to try something new, this is the time. So I'd really love to hear some ideas that you have regarding how we can pursue candidates for Parkland and Park Hill.
Jennifer, if I might make a suggestion for people who are the participants, maybe Gina, maybe if you would take the time to recap the process for those who may not be familiar with it, a few minutes, that might be helpful, and that's just a suggestion.
Jennifer, I defer.
I felt like, Rita, your recap of the last meeting accomplished that, but Gina, I do think Rita's on the right track, that we want to err on the side of making it abundantly clear regarding where we've been. So can you do a quick recap of our
I'm
process?
speaking more of the rubric, the process itself, you know, the tool that we used to evaluate the candidates.
Okay, thanks, Rita.
Okay, can I share my screen? Okay, just one moment. Let me pull that up. Just a moment. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
So here's the rubric. We felt as a committee that we needed to have something measurable and maybe quantifiable to compare candidates. Again, not to determine candidates, but just to compare and contrast the skill sets and characteristics of those who submitted. So I can walk you through some of those parameters. Professional experience in legal or title services, accounting, certain real estate professions, finance, design, media, marketing, and I believe we included education. You'll see there was the initial rubric and then the modified rubric that we did just to make things a little easier and streamlined. So, and that was also after consultation with the board. And so we did include education. I don't see that listed here under professional, but that was worth 25 points or 16% of the total evaluation score. We looked at whether people were let's see, business owners, whether or not they owned a business location or did a live work arrangement. We looked at the nature of their residency, whether they were owners or tenants, years of residency in their respective neighborhood, civic activism, serving on a board previously, membership in an organization, or simply volunteering. We looked at ethnicity, as well as generation, knowing that I guess the statute requires that there be someone of us under a certain age as a member of the board. I don't quite remember what that cutoff was, but I don't think we were able to identify a neighborhood representative of that age. And then just looking at digital literacy skills to see how comfortable people were operating in a virtual or digital environment. That became very difficult to qualify or quantify. So we basically took that out, but those candidates who submitted did sort of let us know, indicate where their comfort levels were along those lines. Any questions about that? No questions? Okay.
One point of clarification, Gina, if I may, we use that as a guide, not a requirement. We had some nominators that did not follow that to the letter. They did use that as a tool, and some used it more faithfully than others, but it was certainly not imposed upon any of the nominators. It was strictly to try to provide some objective information to evaluate candidates. Okay, so let's open it up for discussion if there aren't questions regarding the process. And of course, you've been through the process, so you've had some lived experience with it. I'd love to hear from you now regarding your thoughts about how we move forward. Dr. Milliner, I think you were going to say something earlier.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, I felt like the tool in itself was amazing. I'm not sure about the nominator process, because the way I found out about it was online. It wasn't through anyone who knew me and nominated me. It was, I was interested, I found out about it, and you all were going through the process of finding people, and apparently there was one person who either backed out or they didn't want to. I don't know what their situation really was, but at the meeting where they were at the end getting ready to say that there was no one for the California neighborhood, I was like, well, I would like to do it. So no one really nominated me, but I feel like I've done a lot in and around the community, but maybe I hate to say it this way, maybe I'm not the person who is most vocal in some of those, I don't know, neighborhood activities, because I'm a school teacher. So sometimes when things are going on in the neighborhood or the planning process is going on, I'm in Jeffersonville, Indiana, teaching school, which doesn't mean I don't care about my neighborhood or my community or I don't want to be involved, but no one, knew that I was interested in this. So I'm not sure that the nominator process was as effective, at least in my situation. That's all I was going to say.
That makes sense. Can you talk a little bit more about how you mentioned you found out about this online? Part of our previous discussion has been, how are we using effective communication channels so that people even know what our needs are today, right? And I see some of your heads shaking. So we know we're not doing it well. What does a better process look like? How can we get the word out?
I don't know. Again, I think because there has been significant negative information that was put out there, by certain groups that did not want the WEOP to happen, we're kind of behind the 8 ball, so to speak, because now I feel like we have to play catch up or do some damage control, to show people that this is not something that's going to put people out of their houses, like what was put out there. And that's not what this board is for. But because we didn't have, and I hate to say we didn't have effective communication, but we didn't have a lot of communication in the beginning about what the board really was supposed to do. We kind of got lost. The true ideals kind of got lost. So for us, I think with having the website and things like that, we've got to do a true push. We've got to get the community engagement committee to get out there and really engage with the community. We've got to do some of those things so that people actually want to be a part of, instead of looking at it going, I don't want to be a part of that because those are the people that are going to do this, that, or the other, which is all untrue. So again, just my opinion.
Good feedback. Thank you.
So for me, I found out just because I like to look at politics. I know that might sound crazy, but I like to just go online and see what's going on in my neighborhood. I think a good push would be is social media, is to push more information to social media, only because a lot of people don't get online, but they will get on Facebook, they will get on Instagram, you know what I mean? They will get on those platforms. And right now there's no business or organization that is succeeding without having some type of strong presence on social media. I know we have a website, but the website is not effective if we don't know that it exists. So if you're not pushing people to the website, then they won't know what's going on as far as the recordings. That's my thought. I have a long list. I don't know how much time y'all have, but I know that is number one, because you're asking people to join an organization that's getting information secondhand and not getting it directly from the board or the people that's knowledgeable of the process. So the people that need to talk, you know what I mean? And it needs to come from us, from our source, and not from somebody else.
That's great. This makes me think that we have 2 board members, each chairing the 2 committees that have been referenced so far, Dr. Wade with communications and Dr. Jones with community engagement. So having those 2 board members join us in some discussion regarding strategy of how to better utilize those communication channels and community engagement. I was even wondering, and be curious to get your reaction, do we want to have a couple of information sessions in addition to pushing out on social media? Do we want to host an information session in the Parkland neighborhood and an information session in the Park Hill neighborhood, and have some of us on this committee and other board members there to just talk about what this is and what it is not, answer questions, and try to use that as an engagement strategy as well, and spend the next 30 to 45 days really focusing on communication and community engagement in those 2 neighborhoods, and then come back to what is our process then for selection.
I think that sounds like a good idea, to do some reaching out. I'm also thinking, as I think about the Park Hill community, that they're going through a significant transition now with a number of the residences, the folks who lived in the Park Hill housing complex there moving out. And I'm wondering if that transition is having an impact on the neighborhood's awareness of what we're trying to do, or having an impact on whether or not people feel as if they have the time to devote to us. So one of the things we might do, I think, is, in addition to reaching out by using our community engagement committee, we may want to make a note of the community-based organizations that are in those two neighborhoods and reach out to them directly and deliberately about the possibility of them nominating someone from the neighborhood to be a part of the board. So just think about the resources, the neighborhood-based organizations in those two neighborhoods and reach out to them.
Mhm. That's good. We can also ask the elected officials representing those neighborhoods, both at the state level and Metro Council, to include in their
Yes.
newsletters and any information that they're distributing. I know Representative Herron offered to do that for us, as well as our interim chair, James.
Mhm.
So we could look at the other neighborhoods too, to make sure that we're being inclusive of all elected officials and utilizing their communication channels too.
Yes.
Hey, Chris, glad to have you join us. I see you were able to come on camera. I want to give you an opportunity to weigh in if you have some additional thoughts.
I don't think I have anything additional, but I do concur with what everyone was saying. Actually got a letter. I don't know why I got a letter about the We Are board, but I did get that letter. But one of the things that I ended up doing when I was on some of the informational calls was I was actually then going to like my neighborhood association and explaining to them the process and what I saw, which is how we ended up getting. I think we had a good number of nominators for the Park Duval because they wanted to be involved in that aspect. So I think that most definitely getting into those neighborhoods and kind of what the board is designed to do. I think that is going to be the key to getting people from those neighborhoods involved. So I kind of concur with everyone on that as well. And I do believe that there needs to be a stronger PR blitz or social media campaign to get the word out there about what we're doing and why we need the input from the folks in those neighborhoods.
Good. I'm curious, Chris, where did that letter come from?
I don't remember. I mean, it was a while back.
Okay. It's just
it was
interesting. The three of you have just identified three different ways that you heard about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when it first got passed, I think it was almost like an informational thing. Like if you were interested
Okay.
in more information about because I don't even think it was called the WEOP yet. I think after the TIFIT passed, I guess they sent some information out and say if you want to stay involved, connected, and that's kind of where I got that letter from.
Okay, good.
Chris, I know that it might have been the letter from Senator Neal and Representative Stevenson, because they did a non-neighborhood blitz early on. And I don't know, you might have remembered if it was from them, but that is one of the letters that went out to the community.
Okay, that's probably what it was.
Good. Okay. What other thoughts do we have in terms of communication or community engagement? Gina, anything coming up for you? You've been here from the very beginning. You've been a key leader in driving this committee's activity.
I'm just really taking in and processing the feedback from people that went through the process. And yeah, I guess maybe you all could speak on the process, so maybe not the effectiveness of the nominators, which was really, I think, an avenue for us as institutional board members not to be presumptuous and pretend to speak for the neighborhood. So that's why we did try to recruit a diverse array of community people who are connected and could hopefully find interested applicants. But I guess just maybe some feedback from you all in terms of going through the process, if there were any particular pain points or things you feel like we could improve upon for the next applicants, that'd be helpful.
I know for me, so I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little hood, now professional. Some may understand that, some may not. But coming from where I came from to where I am now, the process was extremely professional. It was very apply for this job, if you will. You have an interview, you have people you're going to discuss and talk to. They're going to ask you questions. But if I'm still little hood and you want me to go through that process, it's foreign to me. I'm not going to be able to fully understand why I have to be on this Zoom call talking to multiple people that I don't really understand, nor do I know. And to be honest, in that state of mind, I probably don't even care who you are. I want to know how you're going to benefit or help my community. So the process was very professional. I think that it should be a little more eclectic, if you will. It should be some individuals that can talk on their level. And it's no disrespect to the people that interviewed me or spoke to me. All of them was awesome and wonderful. But you're dealing with two neighborhoods that have a numerous amount of killings, has a numerous amount of displeased with law enforcement, with politics, with politicians. They're not the ones that they're going to listen to say, hey, be a part of this board. That's going to push them even farther away. So you really need someone that's going to be able to dictate and talk to them in a way, in a level that they can understand, to say this is where you need to be at for the betterment of your community. That's just my thoughts.
I want to thank you for being so candid. I find that really helpful because what I hear you saying is that we need a more accessible process. And, we talked a lot about accessibility along the way. I don't know that we talked about accessibility from this particular lens, which I think is crucial. So thank you for raising that. I'm curious, what are some ways that we can get the right people in this process to help make it feel more comfortable and accessible?
That's part of the reason why I raised the issue about the Park Hill Community Center. And the absence of that center, I think, may have had an impact on our ability to identify some neighborhood people from Park Hill who would be willing to serve, because that community center really acted as a hub of activity for young people, as well as the adults in the community. I don't know if it would be possible for us to use some contacts that we have in the city's Metro Housing Department to see if they could put us in contact with some of the folks who used to staff that center, because they may know of folks still living in Park Hill who would be good contacts for, to consider for board placement. But if you look at the demographics for Park Hill, it's really the poorest community in the city. The health disparities are the most pronounced there for both adults and children. Every single challenge you can think of is much more exacerbated in the Park Hill community. And I think all of that has an impact on our ability to reach out and identify people, and even people's willingness and time to serve. So we've got just some very rudimentary challenges in Park Hill that we've got to be a little, I think, ingenious in trying to figure out how do we meet those challenges and overcome them.
This is very helpful dialogue. Other thoughts before I transition us a bit to actions and next steps?
I was just going to say, if it would be helpful, I would be willing to reach out to the Housing Authority to ask the question about folks who used to work there at Park Hill. Do they have any, can they point us in the right direction or act as a resource to help us identify some folks in the neighborhood who might be willing to serve? I'd be willing to take that on.
That would be wonderful, Laura. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Well, let me see if I can recap what I've heard so far, and we can talk about distributing some of the action items. It sounds like we want to really enhance our social media outreach, and I can reach out to Dr. Wade to talk to her, as well as Dr. Jones and our community engagement committee. I don't believe that committee has yet met, if I'm not mistaken. Right, so Dr.
That's
Malina,
right.
are you on that committee as well?
I am not on that committee,
Okay.
but have recently talked to a couple of the members that are on the committee, and they were saying how they had not met as of yet.
Okay,
They were working
Okay.
out some logistics.
okay. Do we have anybody on here that also serves on that committee? Because that might be a sweet spot too.
I think Chris, are you on that committee? Chris Romaine?
Yes, I'm actually on that committee, and
Okay.
we are working with Rita to try to get the open meetings figured out so that we can actually have our meetings and get that going. But the problem with that committee is that really it's people from the neighborhoods in that committee. So there is no Park Hill person on that committee.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
wonder if that committee though, Chris, and this would be a question, I think, for Dr. Jones and for those of you serving on that committee, if they would work with us to do some outreach specifically in Park Hill and Parkland, because I think part of what I'm imagining is if we were to host an informational session, if those of us on the board, both representing neighborhoods and institutions, could be on hand to answer questions, to share information, is that a joint effort of three committees, board development, communications, and community engagement, to do a couple of info sessions over the next 30 to 45 days in those neighborhoods? And Laura, to your earlier point, if we could rely on some of those community-based organizations to team up with us to get the word out, as well as the elected officials, I think we want to approach this as a multi-pronged effort. Social media, elected officials, neighborhood information sessions, as well as you reaching out, Laura, to the housing authorities. So
Yeah, and the school, what's the elementary school there that's on 7th Street? They have, there are a number of people who live in the Park Hill area whose children go to that school, and the school is a real good resource too for the community. So it might be worthwhile reaching out to that school. We'll put them on the list.
that's great.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Is that school Moppin or Wheatley?
No, Wheatley is on, that's not Mopley. I almost called the name of it. I can see the school, but I can't think of the
Okay.
name. It's actually on 7th Street.
Yeah, yeah, but I think Maupin's is in the Parkland neighborhood though.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Maupin is in Parkland. Yeah, it's a very modern school with a fabulous library for the kids too. Let me see, I'll think up.
Is it McFerrin?
That's it. It's McFerrin.
Okay.
It.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's on South 7th Street, 1900 South
Mhm.
7th. Mhm.
Now that we're to this point in the discussion, and I think this has been helpful to identify some new ways to outreach and to communicate the opportunities. Are there additional thoughts of how we can move forward and cast an even wider net to make sure that citizens in these two neighborhoods are learning about this from us and from voices that they trust?
Could we reach out to some of the churches in the neighborhoods? Since I would assume that most folks that would attend the churches there would live in that neighborhood.
Okay, good. And Laura, what I think I'll do is reach out to Dr. Wade and see if she can help us with a informational flyer. To
Okay,
start sending out to the churches, the schools, the community-based organizations, into the hands of elected officials. And then what do you all think? Let's go back to this idea of hosting an informational session. Do you want to attempt to do something? I know we're in the red zone. Do you want to try something virtually? And do a virtual information session sometime between now and, let's say, the next 30 to 45 days, and see if we can get a turnout for folks coming and just asking questions to those of us on this committee and our other committees? Or do we focus on these other approaches first and see if we can generate some interest that way?
Jennifer, I see Dr. Milliner shaking her head. No, she may want to say something, but when you said we're in the red zone, are you talking about COVID or?
I am.
Okay, that's what I thought in terms of being able to do something in person.
Yes.
So Dr. Milliner, whatever comments you have, you might want to share.
Yeah, I was shaking my head. No, one, because we are in COVID. I'm like, oh goodness, no, we don't want to do anything in person, obviously. But I'm not sure that anything virtual will get those people from those neighborhoods involved at this time, but until we can reach out to them and show some face-to-face, or like get those flyers into their hands or something, I'm just not sure that would, and again, just my opinion, I'm just not sure that anything virtual would help us in that respect.
Point taken. Any other comments on that particular point? I think if we focus on the flyer and the social media outreach, I know Bentley has been working with our communications team and has previously helped us with some social media. If we focus on getting the flyers and the social media moving again, I see that we have at least one member of the media here today watching this meeting. We could rely on our partners in media to get the word out that we really focused on doubling down to get the word out in Parkland and Park Hill. Why don't we give ourselves a few weeks to get the flyers in your hands too, because we all have networks, right? And see if we could cast the widest net we possibly can, and then give ourselves some time to do that, and then come back together, see where we're at, and then make some additional decisions from there. How does that sound?
that sounds good.
Okay. Okay, well, I think we have a clear path forward for now. Why don't we tentatively, and we'll send out some meeting options for the end of this month. I don't believe we'll meet again before our full board meeting, but we'll update at our full board meeting to determine where we're at, and as far as effectiveness with this rebooting of our communications strategy. We'll do an update then, and then schedule a meeting for after the board meeting, the week or so after the board meeting, and just in terms of next steps for a timeline here. In the meantime, if you have additional thoughts to share as we get started down this new path, please do reach out to me or Laura or Rita, who is supporting our efforts here, and feel free to continue to offer any suggestions. And we'll get moving forward now with these ideas. And again, I appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedules to talk about this. I know we're all very passionate and focused on getting these two neighborhood representatives on our board. We want a fully compromised board, and the sooner the better from our point of view. But we want to take this process and do it right to be as inclusive and accessible as possible. So I think we're trying to strike the right balance here, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the discussion.
Jennifer, just one thought. For anyone who wants to send an email, I know we have had some preliminary conversations about getting the board members, the West End Partners email addresses. We don't have that set up yet, but if they don't have your direct email, they can always go at info@westendpartners.org, which automatically comes to my email, and I can make sure that you or Laura, definitely whoever, gets that information. So I didn't put it in chat, but it's info@westendpartners.org.
Okay, thank you, Rita. And with that, I think we are ready to adjourn today's meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.